Hello, welcome everybody to our first really hybrid event. Up until the last 2 years, we only did real virtual events, but now we got about 500 sign-ups worldwide looking at this and about 50 people here, which is really, really nice to have a real vibe again. So welcome everybody. The topic of today is the successful strategies for the new era of e-commerce. My name is Tim Van Der Bilt. I'm the founder and CEO of Maze One. We are a true marketplace agency. We got about 50-ish Amazon specialists. We do nothing else than working on the Amazon, bol.com platforms. And we have been acquired about 6 months ago by Incubeta. So very nice to be part of the family and now joining the force of e-commerce from both sides. So very much looking forward to have you today. These are the speakers for today. Really nice. We got Bert from Hunkemoller, our own Jess Jacobs, Joli from Chocolonely, Marcus from CNA, and Henry joining us virtually from the Google head office in the UK. So this is the separation. First, before the break, it's Hunkemoller and Tony's, and afterwards it's CNA and Google. But please allow me to introduce our first speaker of today, which is our very own Jess Jacobs. She is the Global Director and Partnerships of Growth at Incubeta. She's done some wonderful research about the power of e-commerce, and the future of e-commerce is going to share that all about with you. So please ask questions in the tool.
Thank you. Thank you. So kicking us off, I think we can all agree if you are in the world of digital, it is no secret that things change really fast. We are used to a fast-paced environment, and we prepare ourselves to adapt equally to the environment. But the difficulty is the marketers that had to prepare themselves for the change that was brought upon us 2 years ago. E-commerce was one of the fastest growing strategies that out of necessities, marketers had to adopt. Now, the beauty, of course, of this is that it allows us to enrich our strategies for the future, but there are some simple steps that we would have to take. And we have taken the time to put the necessary research in place and allow us to share what we believe is the changing environment of e-commerce and how we can help our advertisers, as well as your advertisers, prepare for this change. So we definitely see the fact that the necessity will fall away. With the change, it means that consumers are demanding a much more seamless experience when it comes to e-commerce. They want us to be able to deliver a certain level of satisfaction. There's going to be a lot more competition in it. And we will also see the requirement for in-store not falling away. The world is opening up again. And with this, we are going to help prepare, put the necessary steps in place to amplify these strategies. Some of the steps that we have taken is surveying consumers all across the globe. We wanted to be the consumer for the day. We spoke from our perspective. We understood what it felt to us to actually now start buying everything online. So what were some of the things that we know for a fact will change? So firstly, as you can see, we've pointed out nicely the expected growth. Now, in blue, 2020, 2021, we've seen a significant growth in e-commerce, and it's been rewarding. In 2022, we will see this requirement to be successful at e-commerce continue to spike up. So we have prepared a few steps that needs to be incorporated into your strategy. So first up, and maybe you've already seen a lot of this in place, so we look at an engaging user experience. We have to prepare ourselves that in order to remain competitive in e-commerce, we have to look at the experience first. The consumer is going to task us in order to get them to fulfill their commitment to you, which is actually going through your entire purchase cycle, by making it as seamless as possible. But website speed and website UX have been a topic for years, and we all understood the value of it, but it's now accelerating into a much higher demand of what the standard will become. Next to that, we will look at how competitive it will be to be in this space. Every single store that once was just purely a brick and mortar store now swifted into online. And now advertisers are faced with having to go up against a much bigger pool of e-commerce players. But in addition to that advertising space that is now all online, we see the world of influencers popping up. So the inventory available once to advertisers is equally now owned by influencers. So advertisers, in order to build up that brand equity, have got to leverage a lot of these simple steps to make sure that they can deliver ultimately what is the experience that consumers are asking for. So to stay ahead of the game, we've prepared simple 7 functions that should be considered in your strategy this year and in the future. Think of it as a simple tick box. Make sure that in your strategy for the future, you are including these 7 functions as the categories that will guide your strategy. High level, of course. I cannot go into all of the details at the moment, but I will mention that we have put together an extensive white paper that will be made available covering these steps in a lot more detail. So what are the overarching ones? Management. Operationally, business have to change. Set your teams up in order to drive an e-commerce strategy successfully. If the change was to previously take online managers with somewhat experience in e-commerce to run your e-commerce strategy, it was enough to survive the last 2 years. But coming up, bring in the experts and make sure that your team has got the right foundation to successfully enhance your future competitive strategy. Then we look at your marketing efforts. We still see a lot of siloed departments in organizations. We've got brands, we've got analytics, we've got creative sides, and now we're going to have e-commerce also sitting on their own side of the table. Bring them together. Every single effort you will now make will have an impact on your e-commerce strategy equally. So leverage the steps that you are taking and make sure that your teams have a way to ultimately work closer together. Then looking at merchandising. One of the biggest issues, of course, with moving into e-commerce is understanding how much stock you need to have available and how you can show your consumers the availability of the stock when they are ordering. One of the biggest reasons why consumers will abandon their carts is if they see delivery times are too long or there is no stock available. Make sure that you understand your data. Build the propensity scoring models that will tell you what to stock up on and when. Then looking at convergence and UX. So there are probably a ton of experts that could tell you what the perfect UX strategy will look like. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the consumer. So our look at this is definitely saying, be the consumer for the day. Find out what you like, what you dislike, and try incorporating that into your own strategy. It was a lot of kind of slotting on to what we've once had, but now it becomes us setting ourselves up to what e-commerce actually looks like, which bridges in nicely to one of the next ones we have, technology. A lot of sites today are actually not built on the right technology in order to actually facilitate an e-commerce process. Reevaluate what that looks like and start the migration. Change is never easy, but nonetheless, it is needed in order for us to stay ahead of what change is coming. Leading into customer service and fulfillment, because they go hand in hand. Consumers are asking for us to say, how can you make sure that my experience is going to be as easy as walking into a store, buying something, and if I'm not happy, I can exchange it because I'm in contact with someone. Keep the human effort. Find a way to make sure that once a consumer has actually bought from you, there's an easy way for them to get back in contact with you or make the exchange. There are simple steps and ways that you can connect and give the same experience that we once had in store back online. What else should marketers consider? So the catch-22, consumers are never easy. They're never friendly to the ones that have to craft these difficult strategies. So what we have found is that whilst consumers now prefer to still buy online, they still do prefer to have an offline experience. This means that you need to start bridging the gap. Bring online and offline closer. There are enough techniques available today in order to do so. The only thing that we need to do is the prioritization. What can some of those prioritizations look like? Bring your e-commerce data closer to your in-store data. The experience of what we once had in store, bring it back online. Make sure that there's essentially a feeling that doesn't matter which direction a consumer chooses to go, it ends up being the same fulfillment they once expected from the brands that they would follow. Simple ways of diving into these techniques. I'm not going to go through the extensive case studies that you're going to see, but it's just showcasing how we're leveraging an in-store experience during COVID. Stores are no longer available for us to do try-on or experiences with testing. So bring that testing experience to them online. Make it feel like the same process they once had, allowing them to still feel like they're making the right decision. Buying online requires trust and knowing that I will value the product that I'm getting. So give them different ways to experience that. Another look at how we're connecting data into advertising strategies to make sure that we can enhance the process of booking online. Look at the ample amount of external signals available today. There are a ton of it. This is a simple case of where we've utilized real-time weather to actually help craft what is the messaging, the creative, as well as the bidding strategy and when it's going to take place. Fully automated. But at the end of the day, we focus on the consumer, not the static strategy that once led us all from an industry perspective. We're now saying where the consumer is, based on what their needs are, that is how we will tailor our advertising, ultimately allowing them to purchase and complete the booking cycle with us. So before I go, really as a takeaway, be the consumer and focus on them. Put yourself in the block. Ask yourself, what is the experience that you like? And make sure that that is the experience that you're bringing to the table. We often make the mistakes to disconnect ourselves from the human element in us. And we look at ourselves as being experts in digital, but we don't take the consumer in us. And this is the time, especially when it comes to e-commerce, to let the consumer in you guide the strategy that you are going to push out to you, even to your clients or for your own brand. So, not going to go into the quote, but as I've mentioned, there will be a white paper with extensive details on what we have covered briefly today.
Lots of questions, Jessica.
Sure.
Lots of questions. My mic on? Lots of questions. So first of all, we want to reiterate that we can download this research after the session. So it's very nice to have a read through all the numbers. There's a lot more data than Jessica just described. So a lot of questions basically are boiling down to the same subject, what one person is very, articulate about, which goes, is the high street dead? Basically, what is the role of physical retailers now we come out of this pandemic globally? We'll all start now very much shopping online. Will we go back to the shops? What's the role of the shops? And, how big will it be?
So it's, we love to predict things, but none of us really can make this prediction. But we are emotional as people. So we are all coming out of a really long, extensive period of being locked down. So my feeling in this is that consumers will want to go into store. They might not actually do all of their purchases in store. They're going to go for the experience of it. They're going to see what is available, but they might actually finish off their actual sale online. So this is why it will be so important for us to make the connection between the two.
Yeah. And another question, you had a lot of different variables, but what is the most important part if you want to step up your e-commerce game? Is it technology? Is it customer service? Is it fulfillment? What would you say, in your opinion, is, well, the most important part?
I would say before consumers even know half of what you put into your strategy, it would be the first touch point they have. Their touch point is your technology. If your technology cannot meet the requirements or is not a simple checkout process or even a broken checkout process, they will abandon cart. I believe the statistics was something as simple as 70% of consumers will abandon their cart if the user experience is poor. So that is a lot of effort we have to put into technology first.
Yeah, gotcha. So I think those are the questions. My personal belief, it will be a very nice cooperation between physical brands, having your own e-commerce website, and being on marketplaces. And one brand that's doing that really, really, really well is Hunkemoller. And I would like to invite on stage Bert, as well as Martine. So Hunkemoller has both a great own website, great stores, and a presence on Zalando and Amazon. So I'm really looking forward to hear your opinion on that. So this is Bert, ladies and gentlemen, e-commerce manager Hunkemoller. And this is Martine Kevelham, our own, founder and CEO. Welcome. Have a seat.
It's a nice upgrade.
Kind words.
Already got a promotion. That goes fast, right?
Yes.
All right. So thank you for joining us in this virtual and live event. Jessica already mentioned a bit about online shopping and offline shopping. And recent studies of Incubeta also showed that consumers really like online shopping. And 44% likes it because it's very convenient, right? We click, we get the box at home, and then we're done. But also we see that 39% of the consumers are also liking the online shopping, but 55% like to do both. So in the end, online shopping is here to stay, and marketplaces like Amazon, of course, are growing really fast because of this. And also we see that because of the consumers like to shop online via those marketplaces, we see that brands invest more and more in the advertising because consumers are there and they need to be present. So what has recently been in the news is that Amazon advertising is now worth even more than Twitter, Pinterest, everything combined. So we're not talking about a small business here, it's growing faster and faster. So that's why this discussion today is also very important because the business is growing and now even faster than ever because of COVID, of course. So what's happening here? And that's why we wanted to discuss this today with Bert from Hunkemoller, because Bert is an e-commerce manager and Hunkemoller has an omni-channel strategy. As we all just heard, consumers like both. So I think it's very interesting to talk to you today about this, Bert. So welcome.
Thank you.
So maybe you can introduce yourself a little bit, so about your role and Hunkemoller's e-com strategy before we go into detail.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. So my name is Bert Middendorp. I work for Hunkemoller as a manager e-commerce. So I manage the e-commerce department responsible for revenue online, so traffic conversion, data, and maintenance is also in that remit. Hunkemoller, for those that don't know, I hope that everybody knows, obviously, Hunkemoller is Europe's #1 lingerie brand. We have close to 1,000 stores throughout Europe, but we also operate outside of Europe these days. Very rapid internationalization the last few years. And basically what we strive to be is to be a really global loved brand that the ladies in our case would strive to purchase from. If you look at the strategy in terms of channels, Hunkemoller is somewhat of a, or used to be somewhat, I should say, of a traditional retailer, as a lot of retailers are, obviously, because we are very old. And this has really took flight when we went online. We went online a long time ago, over 20 years ago. We went, for example, on Amazon. We started there in 2014. And basically, our strategy is to combine all those things. It's kind of what Tim just described, to have the symbiosis of the different channels. And there's a lot to say for that, because to give you a personal note, I'm really an online guy. I definitely was that before I joined Hunkemoller. But if you look at 2019, so the year before COVID, omni-channel players were actually growing faster online than pure players for the year 2019. That's data from the Netherlands, but I guess it's somewhat representative for Europe as a whole. So these stores are definitely here to stay, even though they will fulfill a different role.
All right. So if you look at the importance of marketplaces now in your mix, what can you tell us about that? For instance, Amazon or Zalando is also growing really fast. So how important is that for Hunkemoller?
Yeah, super important. One of the three big pillars, effectively. What it comes down to is obviously we're looking for sales, we're looking for expansion, we're looking for increasing our revenue and maintaining the growth. And if you look at marketplaces, there's somewhat of a dual role for them as well. Because like I said, we're looking for just raw sales. That's what I'm all about, definitely. But we also want to build a brand. So we enter new markets using marketplaces and kind of to see what the appetite is. And once that's big enough, once that's sufficient, then we might open a web shop. One of the great examples within our company is Switzerland, where we already had a sizable business through marketplaces, decided to open the own web shop. And immediately it started flying with a really solid conversion.
That's very interesting. And now that the stores are open again, do you change something in your omni-channel strategy or just leave it as it was in 2019?
Yeah, obviously we changed a lot of stuff, right? I think for Hunkemoller, the whole COVID period was as intense as it was for many retailers. But we were also somewhat in a good spot because we already had all these omni-channel things operational and working. So I think at one point we had like 5 different ways to shop through at Hunkemoller, either through the site or either in the store or by appointment in the store or through video, where somebody was literally in the store helping a customer online through video chat, finding the right product. So yeah, we're definitely changing from that perspective, where the emphasis is a little bit more on the online side, on the e-commerce side, and like was said before, it was kind of an acceleration of what happened before then.
All right, let's go into a bit more of a deep dive into the marketplace like Amazon, because like just mentioned before, the Amazon advertising business is growing really fast and now bigger than all other platforms we just mentioned. So if you look at that, how important is Amazon advertising and what's your opinion about the fast growing business that it is?
Yeah, it's massive. I mean, I kind of look at it because I'm from my heritage, I'm like a media guy, so I kind of look at it really from that perspective. And if you look at Amazon advertising, it's amazing how fast it has grown. Even if you look at all the other things that Amazon tried and also amazingly grew really fast in, it's still amazing. And I think it's a bit twofold. On one hand, obviously, it's growing along with their business as an e-commerce platform. But on the other hand, it's also growing as a standalone advertising offering. And I think that's the most exciting part. The way you can use Amazon data, and that's obviously their strong suit, specifically in a cookieless future, to still reach your customers.
And how does Hunkemoller use this?
Well, for example, obviously we advertise on Amazon itself, but we also utilize Amazon data to advertise outside of the platform, and to kind of use that data to create an audience where we say, okay, these are people that are interested in our vertical, in our products. So let's see if we can convince them to go to our web shop. So that's really a game changer as opposed to here's the marketplace and here's the own web shop. That's, I think, where some level of integration is taking place.
And we see the business growing. We see that brands need to invest more because more traffic, bigger platform. Is that also the case for Hunkemoller if we look at marketplaces advertising or Amazon specific?
Yeah, obviously, yeah, we're definitely in that same boat. And yeah, I think the most interesting thing is also the cookieless part of it. That's kind of what changes advertising the most at this point. But sure, that's also happening. Yeah.
All right. So, of course, we see that Amazon now is very big, and we also see that consumers are finding their way directly to the platform because in the US, for instance, 74% uses it directly to shop for product searches and not use Google anymore. I'm very sorry. But that also means that Amazon is decreasing their investment in Google Shopping. What do you think about that? And do you also see this in Europe, for instance?
Yeah, and I think it's a bit broader than Google Shopping. It's also definitely the search element of Google. Yeah, what do I think about it? I think it's an evolvement that you're going to have to cope with, and it's a logical step from Amazon's perspective. But I definitely see you see the same thing worldwide, and for sure in the countries where they have such a big presence. For example, Germany.
Yeah, which is also a market that you entered via Amazon, for instance, right?
I think we were in Germany before then,
Okay.
but there are multiple other markets that we did do that for. Yes.
All right. So in this case, I already mentioned it, but 74% of the US consumers is using Amazon for their product searches. And that also means that content and that you are visible is very important. So, if we look at your specific category, we see that returns are always a challenge, right? In fashion. So if we look at this, that the consumer uses Amazon as a platform to search for products, what are you doing for your products to, well, lower returns, but also give consumers the right information?
Yeah. A really valid question. I think if you look at returns in the vertical, it's somewhat more of a problem than for Hunkemoller itself, has two reasons. One, we have a relatively low return rate, and also when there's a return taking place, a lot of it is being returned to the store, where of course somewhat of a safe to sale trajectory takes place. So actually we save a lot of those returns, and it leads to a better relationship with the customer, and it's more of an opportunity than just a cost, I would say. But that being said, it's still a challenge. I'm not going to say that we have no returns and we save all of them, obviously. So in terms of content, I think in our business, we're selling lingerie, so it's a very precarious product. It's really about educating people on what's the right size. As a man, I learned a lot about this, because it's not only the size, but it's also the cup fit, and there's like a couple of variables, as opposed to, for example, pants or a shoe or whatever. So it's you really need to educate them and entice them to kind of do that step before they make the actual purchase. But what we also do is personalize specifically on the sizes or the variables that we already know. And that helps a lot as well.
All right. What we also hear a lot is that Amazon is a marketplace that looks a bit poorly and that you cannot use it to build your brand. I'm very curious how you see this.
Yeah, I wouldn't totally agree to that, because in the end, Amazon, in my world, in the fashion world, is obviously, like you said, treated like somewhat of a sterile, maybe a bit of an industrious type of platform, if you will, really sales focused, really conversion focused. There's something to say for that. Obviously, fashion is an emotional product. So yes, I think with respect to that, platforms like Zalando and maybe in Holland Wecommerce, they also have, they can also kind of have a right to live, because the big ones are not maybe fulfilling that as they could. I know that they are working on that, and it's really improving. But personally, for me, I think a sale is a sale. I have a lot of confidence in our products. So if somebody receives our products, no matter what way they kind of went to that purchase, they will see that product, they will unbox that product, and they will love that product. So in the end, I think it comes down to that. And a sale can be a brand builder.
That's very true. And if it fits, you have low returns. So that's a good experience as well.
Yep.
All right. So we touched upon this already a few times. The cookieless age world is coming. So how do you see this in related to the marketplaces?
Yeah, I think so. Cookieless is something that everybody is talking about, and a lot of us, I guess, are a little bit anxious about. That I definitely am, but it's also a huge opportunity. And I think if you're now working for a marketplace, or if you are a marketplace, it's a huge opportunity, because you have that data that cookies used to supply, basically, high level. So yeah, from that perspective, it can only strengthen their offering and their value add. Yeah.
All right. So privacy is also something else. It's your brand protection, right? So that resellers or other people in marketplaces don't do something with it that you don't like. So how do you see this brand protection on marketplaces? Is this working for Hunkemoller?
Yeah, I think it's working quite well. I mean, it is identified for a long time as a risk. So the marketplaces are doing something about it. Amazon themselves have the brand protection program that we're also in, obviously. And even though it's something that you should definitely monitor and keep an eye on, at the moment it's not like an issue that's keeping us all busy in the organization. So I think it's a manageable type of dynamic.
Okay, that's good to hear. We don't hear that all the time, but good for you. So, last point before we stop this chat. It's a bit looking into the future, of course. We all want to hear your opinion about that. So, in your experience, is it now easier to expand to other markets, to go abroad? I think you already mentioned that a bit earlier, but especially if you look at Amazon, do you think it's now easier for brands?
Yeah, I think it's a huge enabler for internationalization. And I think a lot of brands will catch up to that as well. You also have a lot of companies that enable you to sell with your own platforms quite easily throughout the world. But I think that's a whole different proposition than entering a market through a marketplace, because you're kind of tapping into their existing users, or kind of, that's exactly what you're doing. And that's what makes it such a more of a seamless ride towards a level of brand awareness that you can then utilize. So I think from that perspective, there's a really bright future for marketplaces.
All right, and now a big broader question. COVID, of course, accelerated everything regarding e-com. What do you think about this? Will this stay at this, well, huge pace of growth, or will it go down a bit?
Yeah. I think it's quite obvious that that the level of growth will not be sustained, right? I think the big question is, at least what we also internally are really looking into, is what's the stickiness of all these customers that move from offline to online, and what's kind of the new baseline that you have from an e-com perspective as your customers that just visit you because they want to buy something, irrespective of marketing and enticement. And what we see is that there is definitely a shift. So there's a certain amount of stickiness to that. So yeah, that will help people in our profession definitely to continue. But the levels of growth that we've seen in the years of COVID, if I may already call it that, hopefully, that's not sustainable, I think.
All right, so last one before we will go to Tim again. So in 5 years, and if you also want to give something to brands or other people watching who can learn something from your e-com or omni-channel strategy, where do you see yourselves in 5 years, and especially your own brand?
Yeah, I think it comes down to intensify what's kind of happening and starting right now, right? So to the point of Jessica, also in the previous presentation, I think it really comes down to bringing all that data together and letting it work together, and creating a level playing field of all those pieces of data where you can benefit from all these different platforms and know more about your customer and give them a more relevant experience. So I think that's really what's going to happen in the coming 5 years for any retailer out there.
Yes, I agree. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we do have a few questions. Is time for that? So, Bert, I know you're very experienced. You go a long way back. I think we were even colleagues in 2007 at AOL. A lot of questions about selling on marketplaces. And one question is, I think, a very relevant one. It has about seller versus vendor. So the question is it better to start as a business, as a mid-sized business, to start as a seller or vendor? For the audience, a seller is basically you manage your own account and you set your own prices. And you use Amazon as a platform to sell to consumers. And as a vendor, you sell as a wholesaler to Amazon. Amazon sells to the consumer, and basically Amazon determines the pricing. So it's two different models. There's pros and cons to both, but the question is to you: what do you think for a mid-sized business to start? Would you prefer a vendor or seller?
Yeah, I think it's also if you focus on Amazon itself, because I do believe it's also kind of dependent on the platform, right? So for these more fashion-oriented platforms, we work together with them a bit more intensive in terms of do a collection together and those kind of things, and then that's also influencing this question. But if you look at Amazon, I would start as a seller, see how far you can take that. And then try to expand if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Keeping in mind, obviously, the downsides of becoming a wholesaler.
Due to the pricing, I think, because you can control your pricing.
Exactly. Yeah. So
another question is about Hunkemoller's great customer experience. How are you injecting that physical experience from a store? How do you get it into your own web shop, which I think you're doing a lot of things for? Maybe you can explain a little bit on it. And how are you also doing perhaps on other places like Zalando? How are you getting that physical experience onto digital?
Yeah, good question. And I think first of all, every place has its own need for communication, right? So a lot of people think like, okay, we need to copy one of the like offline to online or the other way around. I don't per se agree to that. But if you look at our own website, we have a lot of tools there. They're like fitting tools, things that you can do, questions that you can answer in order to find the exact right size. And if you look at the marketplaces, yeah, it kind of comes down to your product information. It kind of comes down to your brand page. And I think those are the two places where you should inform your customer really relevant, because I'm not a strong believer in telling them too much, and to enable them to make to get trust and make that purchase.
Yeah. And then finally, there's a question for you, Martine. Can you give us a top tip for someone starting out on marketplaces?
Oh, all right. So the top tip is that you have all your basics in place. So you need to have content, you need to have your logistics, your fulfillment, you need to have stock. Like Jessica already mentioned, that is very bad if you don't have anything to sell.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to have budget to advertise, because we already learned that without advertising on Amazon, you are not visible. And if you need help, ask for it, because it can be a jungle. And there are lots of sellers or vendors already online. But get the basics in place. Make sure you have the right assortment, the right content, pricing, logistics.
Gotcha. That's a lot of top tips.
Yes.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Bert.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Martine. We're going to go out for a quick 15-minute break. And afterwards, we're going to have Joli from Tony's Chocolonely. No? Oh, we're going to have Joli from Tony's Chocolonely now. Joli, hi, welcome on stage. Very sorry. Tony Chocolonely has been our client for a long time. Very proud. It's a great brand. It's a great e-commerce brand. We love the position of the brands and, of course, all the values that it stands for. So very curious about your presentation, and afterwards I'll come back for a few questions.
Thank you.
Take it away.
So yeah, hi. Nice meeting you. I'm Joli. I work at Tony Chocolonely, and I'm gonna talk about two things actually. I'm gonna start with a bit of the story about Tony Chocolonely. So what we do, and especially why we do it and how we do it. And after that, I'm also gonna dive a bit into what we do online and what we do with our e-commerce business. So first, a little bit about Tony. So what you see here, this is actually the cocoa industry. So what you see on the left, there are a lot of farmers, especially in West Africa, that produce cocoa beans. On the other side, there are a lot of people that actually eat chocolate. But in the middle, there's just a few really big players that have a lot of power. And you can see it's kind of a, how do we say it? In Dutch, we say zandloper. But yeah, an hourglass especially. You can see it's a bit messed up, and that means that a lot of people in the middle have a lot of power, and that really drives down the price. So for example, if you pay around €2.80 for a bar of chocolate, only 16 cents of that bar goes back to the farmer. And you can imagine, not enough to make a living on. If you have a look at the supply chain, so this is the Ivory Coast and Ghana. Those countries together produce around 60% of chocolate, so cocoa worldwide. And there are over 2 million actually farmers that produce that chocolate. On those farms, there are 1.5 million children working. And you can say, wow, that's a lot of children. Sometimes it's okay. So what we think is okay if children work, for example, in the weekends, a couple of hours, or they go to school and they work on the farm in the evening. But 95% of those children are actually working there illegally. So they don't go to school, they work with very, very bad pesticides, or they work with heavy materials. And even 30,000 children are working there, and they're actually child slavery. So they work there and they are really misused. So we are crazy about chocolate, but serious about people. And what we do actually, we're not a chocolate brand that have a mission. No, we're an impact brand that actually sell chocolate to reach our mission. So we do that in this way. So we have a few guidelines that are really important for us. So we have traceable beans. So if you have a direct trade, you can actually see what's going on in the chain and what you're doing. We pay a higher price, because if you don't pay a higher price, of course, you cannot assure a farmer a livable income. We support strong farmers. We work with them long term, and we focus on quality and productivity in the farm. So it's not a top-down strategy. We're really working together with these farmers. So what we do and how we do it. One, we create awareness. Two, we lead by example. So we're not just doing that ourselves. I mean, the chocolate industry is very, very big, and we cannot fix it by ourselves. So we really work together with others. So inspire to act. We have our open chain policy. So we actually invite others to join our chain. So for example, Albert Heijn Delicata is part of it, and Aldi. And now about e-commerce. So what do we do with e-commerce? We have a tailored 360 online experience, and we focus a lot on gifting. Few parts that are important for channel strategy. One, we have consumers. Of course, consumers buy a lot of chocolate, especially in retail, but also online. We have big businesses. We also have a big reseller program. We sell on marketplaces. We have a big gifting platform and grocery, e-grocery then especially. Oh, there's a little line in between, but for every kind of channel, we have a different reach, a different goal, and a specific USP. So if we look at consumers and businesses, the reach is, of course, not that big. I mean, we have a website and everything's in place, but it's not as big as you can imagine these other channels are. But the interest of the people going to our website is quite high. So that is something we should use. On the other hand, the goal is not to sell a lot of chocolate on our own website. No, the goal is really to create fans. Really loyal people already going there. So we really want to make them even more loyal. And the USP there then is everything's there. So we have our whole assortment there. It's also partly unique. So there's a unique assortment there. And we offer personalized bars. So you can do whatever you want with the wrapper of the chocolate. Then we have resellers. And resellers is quite an interesting one, I think. Because resellers, we have a reseller shop. And everyone that has a shop or a website can just buy our chocolate and sell it again. So we have a reseller shop in our web shop, and everyone can just go there. Also people with high interest. So, you know, if people go to that shop, they're probably going to buy the chocolate. Goal there also is to really make them loyal. So you can imagine if you put a chocolate bar somewhere in the back of your website, no one's going to buy it. But if you have these resellers that are super loyal and also super interested in your brand, in your story, then they sell way more chocolate. And also if these resellers become quite big, we can also look with them and see how we can even spread our story across and to the consumers that they sell the chocolate to. The USP there is we want to be the best partner. So we want to be super good partner. We want to have fair, easy prices, deliver fast. Then we have marketplaces, and marketplaces do have a really big reach, as you can imagine, and we're all here, so we know what marketplaces can do. But the goal there still is a bit different. So what we trying to achieve ourselves as Tony Chocolonely on these marketplaces is brand awareness. So tell the story. People know what they can get. People know what we stand for and what we're trying to tell. And the USP there is it's already selected for you. So it's not the whole assortment. It is a specific assortment and it's easy, great value. E-gifting is something we put in there because the chocolate bar is of course a really nice gift. But also if you look at a chocolate bar, which has a story and the story is inside the bar is already telling the story, then if you add gifting as a channel, for us, that's a super good way to not just have one fan, but spread the message. So if people give away our chocolate, we're even spreading the message further. And so the goal there is also brand awareness. And the USP is that it's tailored by you, so you can make of it whatever you want. We offer a lot of options there, and it's quite unique. Last one is e-grocery. And e-grocery, for example, has also really big reach. For us, it's also brand awareness there, which is really important. And it's just super efficient, sent to you fast, etc. And I want to dive a tiny bit into two of them. So the first one and the third one. So you think about the Tony's consumers and businesses. These are actually two segments that buy on our website directly. And then you see this, and this is just a Tony milk caramel sea salt, which is one of, the most popular ones of Tony's. So it's not a super interesting assortment we have there, but what we do here is you can see there is some information within the wrapper. There's also the bar, and the bar is equally divided, so we can split it up, and so people know that also the industry is not equally divided, so that's why we do that. And this is really a way for us to tell the story. But there's more. If you have people on your website, and there are a lot of consumers there, this is also for us a way to really tell the story. So we have a lot of information about our impact. We have a lot of information about becoming a serious friend, which is kind of our community. And that is how we're trying to tell the story to people that are already on the website. Because you can imagine, if we work with resellers, of course we can tell our story there. And of course our bar tells already the story, but you kind of miss out on that aspect. So the personalized option. This is me on a chocolate bar, and you can all do it yourself if you want with the bunny ears. Perfect for Easter. No, so a couple of years ago, we launched actually this, and this we call our wrapper creator. And what people can do here, everything. It's just a blank canvas, and they can just add in images, text, background, whatever they want, and they can create their personalized wrapper. And this really, really took off for us. So you can imagine a lot of consumers do this with the bunny ears. Also, a lot of businesses do it. So you see it during events or like as a relationship gifts or whatever. And this is something we really offer mostly on our own website, because we want to stay unique and we want to give people the opportunity to make something of that. And here you can see some super nice examples of companies that have done that. But I think another very interesting one is also marketplaces. So what do we do on marketplaces? There are actually two things we do. So what you see first is our own shop. And our own shop on marketplaces is not the biggest one you're going to see. So for example, this is bol.com. And in our own shop, we can really tell the story. So who are we? What are we doing? And why are we doing it? And on the other hand, you have a lot of resellers, because we open up our business for resellers that easily. You can see that they're also really selling a lot of chocolate there. They're even selling more chocolate than us, because they can deliver faster, they can be cheaper. We don't really want to make chocolate that cheap, because that really is not matching with our mission. So what we do ourselves is we are telling the story and be there. And that is super important for us, but there's more, because we're also offering kind of an exclusive assortment on bol.com. And if we do this, we know we're not gonna interfere with the resellers there, because they're not allowed to sell this on Bol. And these are also the products, for example, that we use sponsored on Bol. And that is kind of a way to distinct us from all the other people out there. Well, I think you are hungry, because break has already been told, but I'm also wondering if you're curious, because if you want, you can try and get your own personalized bar and go crazy. If you want the bunny ears, then we can make that work, of course.
That's a good offer. Yes, what? I have a lot of questions.
Yes.
But the most important question that's also come in for the chat: what's your own favorite flavor? It came in 3 times, so
Yeah.
people want to know what's your personal favorite flavor.
Well, if I spoke for the rest of the Netherlands, it would be caramel sea salt, but it's not actually. No.
Is that the one that's sold most?
Yeah, that's really, really an important one.
Okay.
But I'm really a big fan of everything white. That's
White chocolate.
yeah, it's not really chocolate.
I heard in white chocolate there's not real cacao beans. Is that true?
Yeah, there's cacao butter.
That's cacao
So
butter.
it's still part of our.
Okay. Before we get into the real chocolate discussion, I also have a few e-commerce questions for you. How important is the grocery apps such as Zap and Flink and all the fast delivery apps that are so big and now so fast growing? How big are those for you?
Yeah, they're they're not that big yet. Of course, you can also imagine we started in retail, and for us, e-commerce is very important, but retail is way, way bigger. But if you look at these fast delivery, you know, it's people want to order something and it's fast and it's impulsive.
Yeah.
Chocolate is a really good product for that.
Yeah,
So we
yeah.
do see them grow a lot, and
Yeah.
it's becoming way bigger for us actually. So yeah, it is very important.
Yeah, you want it now, right?
Yeah, and then
So-
it's chocolate. Yeah, that,
Yeah. And you're very strong on your vision and your mission and the whole way. You explained it very nice, and I think it's fantastic. The question is, how do you communicate that mission and vision through an e-commerce strategy? How do you get it across?
Yeah, so it's always in our strategy. So there's nothing we do because what I said, we don't sell chocolate because we want to sell chocolate. No, we sell chocolate to be able to communicate and create awareness around what we do and why we do it. So one of the important things is that our bar always tells a story. So even if you get the personalized bars and you make whatever you want out of it, the inside always already tells the story that we share. But for example, when we do paid media, it's also a big part of the awareness campaign. And we always make sure that it's included. Also, when we, for example, work with resellers, then if there's potential, we're really going to sit down with these resellers and see where is there a possibility to share our story.
Yeah.
And most of the times there is actually, so that's good.
Really amazing. And also wondering, how big is Amazon or bol.com? How big are marketplaces? Maybe as percentage, maybe you can't share, but is it of any size on the whole scheme of things, or is it still very, very small?
Yeah, so if you look at our own shop on, for example, bol.com, it is still quite small, but we can tell our story. But on the other hand, if you also look at all the resellers that buy the chocolate and sell it on marketplaces, yeah, then it's becoming quite big. So that's really a big one for us.
It's growing.
Yeah, it's growing a lot. And of course, it's sometimes, and that's the thing about having also this reseller option in it, it's sometimes hard to track.
Yeah.
You can imagine we have a lot of resellers and we can exactly see what they buy, when they buy it, and what kind of products. But how they sell it, that's sometimes a bit more vague.
Yeah,
but we can see quite a lot.
Yeah, and growing. All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Yeah.
For your presentation, very lovely. If we go through the next one, I think now
it's really the break.
Now
Yeah.
it's really, really the break. Thank you so much, Jolene. Well done. So I think we have a well-stocked bar, and we do have a lot of Tony Chocolonely chocolate. So see you in 15. So our next speaker is Marcus. Marcus is working for CNA. Great company, has 12 years of digital experience. And he's going to share with us about his vision about e-commerce and all the experience he's went through. So welcome on stage, Marcus.
Thanks. So nice to be here. Thanks for the introduction. So let's just quickly through. So yes, I'm talking about our CNA digital growth strategy. So what are we going to do in the next years, where we are, where we come from? So we had it already in the first conversations here, and I think it's one of the most things which we recognize when we look at COVID. It's, let's say, the last 2 years, not only the last 1 year, changed so much than we never had even 10 years before, right? So we had so many things changing, all the home office areas, digitalization, sustainability. There are so many points you could put on a slide like this, what changed in the last 2 years, which got more important for our consumers. Where we say, like, it's changed a lot. So in the thing is, where or what has changed for the consumer influences, of course, how you needs to be as a brand present there. You needs to serve the consumer where he wants to be served. So what I put here, and it's just something like how a consumer buys, especially this meeting gives us again the same topic. It's about marketplaces, it's about social media, it's about stores, it's about your technique, web shops, apps. So for the consumer in the end, he's not typically searching for one slide, for one product at one page, right? So he's not going directly to CNA looking for a denim and buying it. Typically what's happened, he's got social media inputs, he's going to marketplaces, he's going somewhere else, he's looking for products, he's getting brand stories, he's looking for it, which product fits, and then browsing, maybe through us, using also for us, especially store finder locations. I mean, we have over 1,000 stores across Europe. people are going in the stores, they're looking for their products, taking them on, maybe taking them at home, buying them online, try them in store. They're waiting that the payment in store will go also nearly digital now, right? So they're expecting to go with an app, whatever they have, not only via cash. So they're getting more into the mood of digital has to work. And afterwards, return process, we talked also about it already, it has to go very seamless. Right? The consumer expects, otherwise he will not buy again. And afterwards, yeah, the whole journey starts again. And this is something which is very important when we think of the consumer journey or shopping journey does not end in the end with the purchase. Because in the end, what's important for a brand is to understand what comes afterwards. So you need to stay connected, because one purchase in the end is good, is a sub goal, let's call it like that. But you need to get him into your ecosystem of retending and staying at your brand in touch. So another journey could be, for example, that he scrolls at Zalando and Marketplace and Amazon app, whatever it is, finding a product, and there we come exactly to the same position which we had. Why are you on a marketplace? Yeah, there are several reasons. So yes, it can be a very small brand, and nobody knows you. So it doesn't make any sense to make a big website, taking all the technique, buying a fulfillment partner, whatever it is, and then going with advertising, because you need a lot of money. A marketplace, of course, is then much easier way. Let's call it like that. They have the logistic, they have already a functioning web shop. You just need to bring some products in. Way easier. But of course, then the objective is also, as we see at Tony's Chocolonely, every brand has its own website, its own story. So you need to get them also on your path, in your shop system. And for example, in this one can be, okay, he found at Zalando, at Amazon, where it is, a good denim of CNA. So, and he informs it in the marketplace, okay, it's very sustainable. Maybe a cradle to cradles, very sustainable garment. And then he's interested in looking at your website, at our website in this case, going through and looking for more products, which the whole offer of denim, and then downloading the app, because he said like, oh, okay, there is an app. It's even a smoothless or more smoothless shopping opportunity. And then going through reviews, ratings. So you see all the reviews from others who said, okay, perfect jeans, it fit well. So he buys it. And then comes all these features which we, now, at least I would say in 2022, expect as to say work, right? There should be recommendations. There should be track and trace for products. So you should know when the product arrives. You're expecting it the next day, 2 days, 3 days latest afterwards. And then the whole cycle, you see it at the right side of it, after the purchase, it's all, again, talking to the consumer and the consumer about your brand again. So taking social media into account, he may rate the style, he may share it in his community, he's talking to friends, this was a very good jeans, I like it, it's sustainable, try it on, and to bring other consumers in your cycle. So, and then for us, for example, can be also that we say like, we take the objectives of our stores, so taking the data, which when somebody bought something from online and inviting in to store events, making influencers events, whatever it is, taking specific customers, because we know where they live, we can contact them, tell them, we have here a denim event, you bought denims across 2 years for CNA, you seems to be a good customer, come to our store, we make you a good offer, we're doing a special event for you, and then bringing this kind of loop again into buying more and different products. So in the end, this, of course, is a bit of a vision because CNA is not there yet. To be honest, we are not there. This is not existing exactly in this case. So we are not good yet connected in stores and digital. We're working on it. We have a lot of frictions. And this is also where we see, where we had in the first presentation, what are the things you're working first is also getting the techniques right. You need to have a full, smooth working web shop. You need to have a smooth working app. So the consumer has to get the perfect, let's call it technical requirements to buy. And then you can work on all the other stuff, because otherwise you will lose him even before, and you need much way more investments. So it's about connectivities of each of the channels. And basically, again, it's a bit of the summary what we heard before, but you have different opportunities or channels you offer for a customer, right? And everyone is in a different, or is serving in a different role to the consumer. So our website, cna.com, is more like, you can call it like a flagship store. It has to be all products which are available. It has to be everything there. It has to be connected with offline. You need to find all the information about CNA there. But of course, you have the app. And the app, typically we say like app is more especially for personalization and also for omni-channel perspectives. So looking something in our stores itself. Digital marketplaces is, and we heard it also before, for me, it has like two different options. In the end, you can easily access different like countries or sections where you never are. So before just opening an own web shop, building all the technique stuff, shipping there, taking which carrier we are delivering, just use a marketplace to enter the market and see how your brand is, so to say, react, or the consumers are reacting on products of your brand. But also digital marketplaces can be, of course, an accelerator to get different kind of consumers. It depends, of course, what you're fitting or what is the fit you're looking for. But especially, for example, if you take us as a brand, CNA, there are a lot of consumers which have a mind of CNA, and maybe they would not click on any advertising which we are doing because they know how CNA was 10 years ago. And they say like, no, cannot be. I would never, ever go to a CNA store. So, and for them, it's basically, for us, if we're going to advertise them, it doesn't make any sense. The click rates are low. You can just pay a lot of money, but they will not click. A marketplace can, of course, for this be a different story, because in a marketplace, they're not typically looking for CNA, but we can bring him the products, basically, which he would have never saw before. And then if he clicks on it, afterwards, you recognize, okay, it's a CNA article, but it looks good. A marketplace can be also like, something to get to a consumer which you never otherwise touched with any campaign outside of your website. Stores for us are more, or are still a main lever for CNA. I mean, we're there since 1841, so it's a huge old fashion company, and we have a lot of stores. But we need also to find, especially now after COVID, the role of, okay, and we saw it, nobody knows exactly what is the role. Are the streets dying or not? Are they coming back? How much are they coming back? So what we need to do is we need to find the role of the store and connect them. Because in the end, if I'm in the store or on the online shop, for the consumer, it doesn't make any difference. It's CNA. He expects this article can be ordered in store or wherever he wants. So that's in the end the point where we make the stores, where we need to digitalize our stores. And inspiration and engagement, we put it also here. Social media is, of course, more or an easy chance to engage with your customers via the different platforms. In Metaverse, we put it just here as, of course, there are different trends. There are different websites coming up. There is whatever you can think about, not only in fashion, but it's also trends. It's a way of, we need to look at, okay, what is really happening and what is important. So when we connect in the end to our consumers, or when we connect it, it's really about bringing them in the cycle of your brand. Because what you need to still think of is every time you acquire a customer, it costs, of course, money. So you need to bring them into your cycle, that this kind of invest which you are doing is valuable in the end. So first engaging, connecting, and then, of course, with personalization engines and you're looking that you are getting the customer the right products, because he is not, especially when you offer like CNA, we are offering for men, for women, for kids. We have a broad range of products. It's not 10, it's 1,000. So basically, the consumers are not looking for the whole website and spending minutes of money. They're expecting that we are giving him the products which fitting for him, his size, because he bought already. So you need to be personalized in the end, all your setup. This slide, as said, I mean, founded in 1841, it's a bit different than today, because if you would found now, when we look at, for example, Maze One or Incubeta, I mean, if you found a company now in 2022, basically what you would do is you start digital. We, of course, CNA didn't start digital, so we are like the retailer moving to digital, and but we have the big store fleet, and this is our main advantage versus all the others. but it's still one of the biggest challenges also from when we see how to transform, because in the mindset of the companies are still, we are selling clothing in the stores, and digital engage with consumers is a complete different story. You're not just designing products, bringing it online and expect them to sell. It will not easy work like this. And you cannot, I mean, in the store, you can at least talk to consumers, you can interact with them, but in a web shop, you need more product stories, you need your stories, sustainability stories, you need everything which you're doing. So we need, as a brand, transform, and this is what we're currently doing. We want to transform into a digital age. We want to be digital first, and then using the stores as second advantages to sell our products. So one important thing is also who we target, and especially in the fashion industry, if we're looking at this, there are fashion seekers, there are like kind of a lot of people, different people which you can think about, and also discount people, low price, whatever it is. Zalando is offering everything else. Fashion seekers, basically, we're looking at fashion, fast fashion, every 3 months a new dress. We are looking basically for people with timeless fashion. What does it mean? In the end, it's a way of also a sustainability aspect. We are not going for fast fashion. We are going for fashion who is at a very good quality, but for affordable price, and not gonna throw away after a couple of weeks or months using it. So, and the next thing what we are changing is we are facing, or we are putting in the end the consumer first. So consumer first, meaning if you look to both funnel, if you look to the left funnel, what currently, or what in the last years we did, was often we acquired a lot of new customers. So we're spending money to acquire a new customer to grow. From all which we acquired, or traffic which we acquired, convert of course only a bit, and of them we have even less retaining. So they bought one time and then they were gone. Because of technical issues, frictions, whatever it was, no good experience, no good return experience, whatever it was, long delivery times. So what we are currently doing is we are turning it around. So we're looking at, okay, how do we retain the customers first? So what do we need to do to retain the customers? Because if you retain more in the end, right, if you're getting a better retention rate of your buyers, you need even less to convert, or new people to convert, and even less to acquire. So you can focus in the end about the right people to acquire. You can even spend more money on the right people to get to your ecosystem, and not just blowing money around to get millions of traffic. So for us, it's really about not how much traffic we are generating and how much new visitors we are coming. It's really about how much quality traffic we are getting from each channel, and where does it come from, and how long do they stay in our ecosystem. So that's in the end the main change for us, also from thinking wise. So it's not only more traffic is better, it's really about going to quality traffic. And how we do it also here, and it's good point, we're currently still a lot of removing frictions. So we're investing a hell in our IT systems. We are doing a lot of things to get the customer journey better, because this is still not perfect. And after we get remove of all this kind of frictions, then we're talking about, okay, meeting them in their path, connecting the bits of pieces together, and then creating also in our ecosystem more distinction with app exclusive sales, whatever it is, and membership, and so on and so on. But first, we need to remove the friction, because otherwise, as said, you can do a good membership, but if the technical fundamentals are not working, if your logistic is not working, the delivery speed is not working, you're losing the customers right away. And in the end, that's it. So what we're going to be is we're transform currently this big ship company, how we call it, CNA, with from just brick and mortar retailer to a digital age retailer. And also this takes a lot of effort, because as said, we have a lot of people who are working in retail, and retail ticks offline brick and mortar is different than digital, right? You do not have the data. In digital, you have all the data. So you need to know, like, how do you use them and how do we get them better in? And so this is in the end, our vision to come to one of the top 3 digital employers, and we still want to aim for a balanced consumer gender split. So we still see like men, women, and kids merchandise in our objective. And we see our main truth in Europe from pursuing customers, and with a balanced channel split. I mean, it's like the investment strategy. So that's it from CNA.
Oh. Thanks so much, Marcus, for giving us an insight in the digital strategy of CNA. Obviously, because you've seen your position in such a company, it's very insightful to get all those insights and learnings, and also your vision. So one of the questions I also asked myself, so on this customer journey roadmap, you didn't touch on it, but I saw it mentioned out there. It's called the metaverse. I was wondering what you already drawn it in, so you could expect a question. What's your vision, or what's CNA's vision on the metaverse? What's going to happen?
To be honest, it's very diverse. So we're looking into technologies. There are, of course, things like virtual fitting rooms, which are there in the market, and where we're also looking for, okay, what is the right one for us? Yeah. But it's also, I mean, for us especially, we're still a low value retailer. So it's also a way of how much money can you afford in the end for pricing. And if a product, of course, costs, for example, €12, and then you put like videos on it and so on, you need to sell a lot of quantities. Otherwise, it will not hurt if you're producing videos and so on for everything and then creating virtual reality moments. Yeah. So it's still something where we need to look at, okay, what makes sense for our price points. Yeah,
but it is definitely something on your roadmap. It's something you're considering.
Considering, yes.
Yeah, good to hear. A question: what do consumers care about most when they shop online? Do you think it's experience, it's cheap, it's fast delivery? What's the number one thing in your experience that consumers care about most?
It's really about the point of frictionless journey. The delivery times, for us at least, as we see in our analysis, are not that important. But it's a way of, I would see it not as an industry standard, because for me, from a personal experience, it depends a bit what product you are buying and how long you can wait for it. So I do expect that it hits in a couple of days, but if it's a good product and if it hits 1 day later, it is not a problem. I would not return it, only if it would be for a special occasion and it comes then too late. Then, of course, the return rate goes high. And this is what we currently see. So the return rate goes normally high when you're really late delivering. So delivery time is it not, it's more like the frictionless customer journey.
Okay. And you're removing those frictions, as you mentioned. So you're really having this high over vision due to your role at CNA, and CNA is making a lot of progress. So one question is, what kind of skills in your staff would you invest in, and how would you, that's my additional question, and how would you structure your organization to be ready for this e-commerce era?
What we currently still face is a very siloed organization, which a lot of retailers have. And we're currently also looking at to break this up and really combining all the areas under the umbrella of digital. So it's really putting digital also first and not saying, okay, there is like a buying department and then there is like a small e-commerce department somewhere else as a silo. No, it's about putting digital first and also putting your product development. So everything, you have to design your products basically to how do you will advertise them online? What's the story behind? Not just creating products and then waiting marketing to find a story, but it's the other way around, creating first a story and then the products which will fit in.
Yeah. And what kind of skills would you then hire into the company?
Mostly analytical, of course, from my area. No, but it's really, we are looking for heavily digital skilled people and a lot of experience partly with marketplaces, experience with data analytics, experience with also dynamic pricing, recommendations. So all the techniques and analyzing data and working with the data, that would be the most important skills for us.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot. So thanks a lot for your great presentation.
Thank you too.
And then we go to the hybrid version of the event because Google is speaking from London. I just click it through. There he is. Henry, he's the head of retail and commerce platforms at Google. Of course, Google is making a lot of headway into e-commerce, a lot of exciting stuff happening there. And Henry's going to tell us all about it. How do I? Yeah, click it through.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm really excited to be here in the UK right now with our next guest speaker, Henry Eccles. Henry is a specialist in retail media and has worked with massive UK brands such as Tesco's, ASOS, and eBay, helping them with their data and technology. So I'm really excited to welcome Henry on today.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thank you so much for being here.
We're standing, sitting.
Well, I will let you stand. I'll let you go through your presentation, and then I will be back to ask you some questions afterwards.
Fabulous. Okay. Well, look, thanks for having me, everyone. I was asked to come in and talk a little bit about the fundamentals of retail media. And so I thought maybe the idea would be just have a little bit of a level set to kind of understand, well, what is retail media? Because I get asked that a lot. So the way I think about retail media is I think about like the history of kind of where we've been and where we've got to. So it's not really a new thing. Retail media, I think, was born out of the advent of supermarkets post the Second World War, when retailers actually realized and understood that they could make more money and make more profit from buying from their brand and suppliers than they probably could from actually selling to their consumers. It's a little bit of an upside down paradigm in that regard, but the monies that get paid by brands and suppliers who sell through retailers is often much more margin rich than obviously the low margins that you find at the checkouts. So I guess, what does it look like? I'm sure we've all been to supermarkets. I think this is a picture from JD Sports, where clearly there's a large brand partnership going on between Nike and the retailer. It's not just in-store placements. Tesco's magazine here in the UK, I think, is still today the largest print publication by circulation in the UK. Argos, for those who are UK based, will realise that Argos really was like the gangster of commerce or remote commerce before the internet, and they had a catalogue that was absolutely vast and had a wondrous selection of products, and ultimately all of the pages in that catalogue were commercialised and sold to the brands who were obviously selling through the Argos channel. But I guess with the advent of the internet, retailers have realised that they don't just have in-store placements, they don't just have the ability to print catalogues and magazines. With their websites, they've realised that they're actually selling more than just stuff. Increasingly now, they're selling eyeballs and audiences, and this is actually a headline from Fortune magazine. And I guess the reason this is pertinent is because of all of the traffic that comes to your website, you're very, very lucky if you've got a conversion rate of more than a few percentage points. I think Amazon have probably got one of the highest conversion rates in the industry, and no one really knows what that is, but we all know how easy it is to buy from Amazon. But the vast majority of people that go to an e-commerce website browse but don't actually buy. So there is obviously an opportunity to monetize that traffic. And so ultimately, that's, I think, where retail media has got to today, in that obviously there's audience, there's data, and there's inventory, which advertisers and brand suppliers are super interested in. So I mean, I guess if we look at Amazon, this is a search for TV, and obviously we can see right at the top, clearly Sony have paid for a primary placement there. That's obviously hugely contextually relevant, but they obviously have the ability to overlay data in delivering this particular impression to a user. And I think the other nice thing as well that I hear from brands is that obviously with this they can not only target the consumer at the point of purchase, but they actually also get some level of accountability back on their media spend, which, if you think back about the Nike installation at JD Sports, or a page in the Argos catalogue, very hard to really see any sales attribution as a function of having your brand present, on the front page of a catalogue or a magazine. It's not just Amazon. The whole world is up to the whole idea of retail media. Some are more developed than others. This is obviously John Lewis, the Electricals page. Obviously a huge partnership here between LG and John Lewis. This is ASOS, client I work very closely with. This is obviously Polo Ralph Lauren. And I guess what's interesting here is that retail media isn't necessarily reserved just for consumer electronics or fast-moving consumer goods. We're seeing it really everywhere, and it's not just grocery or large multiples who are kind of engaging in this at the moment. We're starting to see a massive influx of, I guess, new over-the-top players like Instacart in the US, Uber, Deliveroo, all have ambitions ultimately to monetize their audience, not through necessarily selling them a takeaway, but offering that opportunity to brands to make sure that their products or services in front of the right consumer at the right time. Good example here from Tesco, another client of mine, where you can see that obviously they have a partnership both in their search listings, so sponsored search, but also at the top of the page where you can see that Brewdog ad unit again there. And I think critically the great opportunity for digital retail media is the ability to personalize. So it's not just a function of contextual targeting. You can actually start to mesh contextual targeting with a little bit of audience targeting as well, based on the fact that you can obviously target a shopper based on their previous purchase habits. And aside from just on the retailer website, it is also possible, given that the retailer has this huge treasure trove of data, to actually target an in-market and shopping audience away from your e-commerce site. So this is an example here of an ASOS ad where Adidas and ASOS clearly have a partnership, but they are actually targeting an audience away from ASOS.com. The click-through of that advertisement is going to go to ASOS and actually then start to facilitate the sale of an Adidas product through the ASOS channel. So I guess I mentioned that retail media is not new, but like why has it obviously kind of shot to prominence now, and why are we seeing so many headlines about it? I think it's really a perfect storm of two things. Retail e-commerce has obviously exploded across the course of the pandemic, and we've seen obviously just a huge shift to online, and with that means more eyeballs and more audience and more data, which means that marketeers are really following consumer behavior. And then I guess the other part of the perfect storm is that we're seeing some fundamental technology changes and shifts in the privacy landscape globally, which means that with the deprecation of third-party identifiers and trackers and cookies, first-party data and specifically rich, durable first-party data is increasingly an asset for a retailer. So retailers not just have inventory on their own .coms or inventory away from their .coms, they also have an incredibly important asset, which is their first-party data, which allows them to do both targeting, but then also, as I mentioned, that media accountability piece and deliver the return on investment for a brand. I think I've kind of covered these already, but ultimately, that data allows them to do the targeting, media accountability, and as well, we should also not forget that, with the deprecation of third-party cookies and identifiers, contextual relevancy and being able to advertise at the point of purchase is becoming an increasingly prominent tactic for brands. So how big is this? It's pretty big these days. This is US digital retail media ad spending. It's quite a mouthful. And again, you can see like the growth rates here, 53% increase from 2019 to 2020, a 53% increase from 2020 into 2021. We're starting to see very, very, very significant sums of money being spent by brands through merchant channels or retail media channels. And I think really my last graphic here is to highlight Amazon, who I guess are the leading the pack really when it comes to retail media. They disclosed their advertising media group revenues for the first time at the end of 2021, 31 billion in 2021, which makes Amazon a bigger media player than the whole of print newspapers, bigger than YouTube, and so it's absolutely vast and growing probably faster than any of the other channels that you see here on the screen. So yes, I think it's an exciting time to be in e-commerce. It's an exciting time, possibly to be a brand and have the opportunity to not just concentrate your media expenditure in search and shopping and social. Merchant media, retail media is increasingly where brands are looking to play because of obviously the targeting that they're afforded, and also then the media accountability that they can see off the back of their investments. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Henry. That was incredibly interesting. I hope you're ready for a few questions.
Far away.
So I will get us kicked off. My first question is, with retailers becoming increasingly media owners, what does this mean for supplier and advertiser brands?
Well, good question. I would hope it's good news for them. I think down the years, brands have been very beholden to the retailers with whom they work. Often it's seen as a sort of pay-to-play relationship, almost a tax for doing business with a retailer. But I think, I guess that the advent of Amazon and the advent of digital retail media is meaning that brands are actively pushing and pressing retailers to give them critically more return on investment data, more media accountability. They understand how well their investments do in search, how well their investments do in display and video. They want to know how well their investments are doing when they're buying media from Target, Amazon, Tesco's, Kroger, whoever it might be. So I think it's a good thing. It means that they get more data, greater transparency, and ultimately they get access to first-party data. They want to know, and they want to be able to target their ads to people who they think are likely to purchase their products. Rather than it be a spray and pray strategy, they can actually target people based on exactly the sort of shopping profiles that they have.
Absolutely. We will now take some questions from our audience. So my next question is, to what extent do you think retail media today is uniquely lower funnel and designed to drive sales and performance?
So I think there's no doubt that advertising at the point of purchase is clearly a performance tactic. I mentioned that retail media, I guess, has always been you have your brand pots, which probably traditionally transacted through agency groups, and then you had your sort of shopper budgets that transacted through retailers. I think there probably is the vast majority of the money at the moment, and if you look at the Amazon numbers we talked about, I think a lot of that is obviously performance money. But I think the targeting that you can do with a retailer's first party data means that it doesn't need to be uniquely performance driven. So we saw that ASOS and Adidas example away from ASOS.com. There's no reason why you can't use ASOS first party data, overlay that onto a YouTube buy, and start working more top of funnel, mid funnel type of metrics. And I think increasingly we're starting to see that opportunity, and we're seeing brands seize that opportunity, use that retailer first party data, and then look at all of their investments in the whole, and with that reporting that they can get off the back, because they're going to be able to see the sales that then come through the ASOS channel or through the Tesco channel or the Sainsbury's channel, or whoever the retailer is. They're not only going to be able to get great reach and frequency against their key target audience, but they're also going to be able to understand the return on that investment from a sales point of view.
Amazing. Now the next question is a topic that everybody's really interested in. So privacy. Privacy is obviously at the forefront of everybody's mind right now. And I think there are some concerns about how daunting changes to first-party data can be for marketers. What are some positives to these changes in regulation?
So the good news is that first-party data is now king. So I think as a retailer, your first-party data is more important than it ever was. The deprecation of third-party identifiers is obviously making the tracking and ultimately the use of third-party data means that I think there's a greater gravitational pull for advertisers to want to partner with their retail distribution partners, such that they can leverage not just their own first-party data, but the first-party data of the retailer. So I think as I said, I think it's the perfect storm because retailers' first-party data is now so important, and every advertiser's first-party data is important, and that's really the only data that you can transact on now, or certainly into the near future. It's going to be the only data that you're really going to be able to use for for targeting and measurement and everything else. I think we're just going to see a continuation of this trend, and I think we're going to see the investment follow, and I think broad-based campaigns which are based on third-party data are clearly just not going to be viable long into the future.
Yeah. Now, I think we've got time for one more question. So I'm going to finish up with a question of how. How do people get involved and retailers get involved with this if they aren't doing anything yet? Or if they are doing it but want to enhance it, how do they take the next step?
It's a good question. I guess the question I get from retailers is like, well, how do we get this started? How do we advance what we're doing? It's not easy. Retailers are used to selling stuff. They're not used to selling eyeballs and audience and digital media. So I think there's often a skills gap within retailers. So by that I mean like digital media professionals, technologists, who have a particular slant towards to media and understanding how media is bought and sold and traded in a sort of programmatic world. So I think having the right skills involved is hugely important. I always see that when there's a service partner involved, things move faster because it's not just the skills that you need. You also need the technology as well to help ultimately automate and scale this. Because if you're at Tesco's or you're at ASOS, you have hundreds, if not thousands, of brands and campaigns that you would want to be running at any given time. And clearly, you can employ or could employ lots of human beings to do that. But I think using the technology that's out there today to kind of automate and scale this is something that's hugely important and not necessarily easy, because every single use case and every single retailer will be different and will need a slightly bespoke approach. So my sense is get the right people in, get the right kind of company focus on it as well. Get your data in the right place. Often data lives in many different silos. Campaign data, marketing data often lives in a different silo to sales data. So bringing all of those together and then using technology and automation to unlock scale is I think the way to go.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us here. We are out of time.
Pleasure.
So I am going to shoot back over to the Netherlands.
I feel like a reporter. Thank you, Lisa. Back to the studio. All right. So this is what a hybrid event looks like nowadays, switching back and forth from London and Amsterdam. So this was the last session. Thanks so much for being here. Final announcement is that the research that Jess was presenting the other day, earlier, is you can all download it. Please have a look. There's a lot of tips and tricks on e-commerce from all fronts, from the Google angle, from the Amazon angle, from your own website. Please do download it. A lot of valuable information. So that's all we have time for today. So we are going to close down the stream. So I say goodbye.